Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Let her out to play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hey, friends, and welcome again to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Today, I have a very special guest. And as you know, I think all of my guests are very, very special. And my friend Kathy Woodward, she was introduced to me via Facebook, really, from another friend, a friend of mine who is my son's vocal coach. She had put a post up about a movie that came out, and some of you might have seen this, that my son was actually one of the musicians who played and wrote some of the music for this short YouTube clip that's called Two Pink Lines. And my friend Kathy commented on that, and the Lord opened a door for us to connect. And when I heard her story, or even just bits and pieces of her story, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I had to meet this woman. I had to talk to her. And as you can imagine, when we had our first hour-long conversation, there were tears on my behalf because I just fell in love with her story and the journey that the Lord has brought her through. So, if you would please welcome my friend Kathy Woodward to our show today. Hey, Kathy.
Hey,
Hey.
hey, how are you?
I'm so good, my friend. I'm really
Good.
excited for you to share today.
Yes, yes, and I'm so thankful for you reaching out to me.
Well, it's
Yeah.
totally a God thing, and I'm just thrilled. As a matter of fact, I just realized this. Another friend had mentioned to me that a friend of hers was 14 when she had her first baby, and I kind of got the two things mixed up and had forgotten about the other contact. But the Lord knew I needed to talk with you, so I would just love for you to start at the beginning and tell us this story and what went through your heart, what was going through your mind when you were 14 years old and found out that you were expecting a baby.
Yeah. To say that it was scary is an understatement. Um, I had been raised in a good home. We had gone to church when I was, a little kid, and things like that. And so, I knew what the word said about different things, and what the how the world felt about some things, and I had met somebody, and as much as a 14-year-old can be in love, he was 5 years older than I was, and I found myself in that place where I hadn't gone to the doctor to have it, to know for sure, but
Hmm.
your body tells you things, and time had gone by, and weeks went by, and a couple months went by, and it's like, oh my, this is real. And about that same time, my family decided to pack up and move back to Michigan, which is where we were originally from. We had moved to Kentucky when I was in first grade. And of course, none of my family knew that I was pregnant.
Mhm.
And so I met with the baby's father, bef- and before we went, and he let me know that there was no sense in us trying to get married or anything like that, because he didn't love me,
Mm.
and it would just end up in divorce, and he just really pretty much just walked away from it all. So here at 14 years old, we moved to Michigan. No, I know no one up there other than a few family members. go to a brand new school. Nobody knows me there. The the fear of telling my parents. And I know I had shared with you before, I am so thankful to God that abortion was not easy back in 1976. That it
Right.
was something that you very seldom ever even heard about. I had never heard any teaching on it or had heard much talk about it. But if it would have been easy, I'm sure I would have chosen that just because of the fear and the shame
Yeah.
of, because to be pregnant, that means you've been with someone. And the shame of people knowing that
Mm.
I had done that without being married was such a heavy, heavy thing to carry.
Especially at that age.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And of course, I had no idea what to expect. Um, I did not tell my parents until I was 6 months along. And I still had not been to the doctor yet, but they were just, I kept trying to tell myself maybe it's a tumor, maybe, you know, there's just something else medically wrong. But
Anything.
yes, anything but that. And then I went horseback riding with some folks, and that very night the baby started moving and kicking and stuff, and I knew, okay, tumors don't move like that. So this has to be real. And of course there were so many different times that I just cried because I didn't know, what am I going to do? What do I do? And so I finally talked to my mom and told her, after I tried to get my sister to do it for me, and she wouldn't. And she was the only one that knew, her and a couple of my close friends all the way in Kentucky. And so I told her that I thought I was pregnant. And when she said, well, how far along? And I said, 6 months. Well, she just, 6 months. Oh my gosh. We don't have hardly any time to prepare. But I'm blessed because the first thing she said was, well, we're going to keep it. And of course, I hadn't
Yes.
thought anything else but
Mhm.
keeping it. And so they were great with helping me. I was still in school uh, in ninth grade. And so when I became 6 months pregnant, well, since I was 6 months pregnant, and then when we had talked to the school and stuff, they actually had someone who had left money when he had passed away, specifically to pay for tutors for young girls who had gotten pregnant while they were still in school. And
Wow.
so they actually came to my house, and I did school at home from the time from about 7 months pregnant until 6 weeks after the baby was born. I was able to do school at home, um, which actually was a little easier on me because the thought of having to explain to kids at school,
Mhm.
after a while you start showing you can't hide it anymore.
How did you hide it up to 6 months?
I know. Well, one good thing was bell bottom hip hugger jeans were the thing at that time. And the bigger kind of baggy shirts, with the big sleeves, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I was able to hide it until I remember the baby moving. We'd be sitting there watching TV with my mom and dad, I would be, and I could feel him move. And so I moved around a lot in hopes that they would not see my stomach move.
Mhm.
And of course, this whole time hiding this and the fear of someone finding out
Mhm.
for a 14-year-old, sometimes I wonder, I just don't know how I held it together. And so when I went in to give birth, it was not an easy task at all.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, I was in labor for 52 hours.
Goodness.
Had not had a drop of anything to eat or to drink or anything for 52 hours. They had induced my labor, um, and it was a hard, hard labor for 52 hours. At one point, I'd gotten delirious and thought there were little men on the floor trying to kill me, and it was terrible. And by the time
Mm.
they decided that they were going to have to do a C-section to save my life, and they still weren't sure if they were going to be able to save me and the baby. But God had other plans, and
But God.
but God, it is a fact, but God. So I delivered a healthy 6 pound, 3 ounce little baby boy. And at that time, they did ultrasounds, but they wouldn't tell you what it was. You had to wait till birth to ever find out. And so I was trying to stay conscious enough because I hadn't slept in that 52 hours either.
Mm,
And I was trying to stay awake just enough after they gave me this, the medicine to numb you,
right.
um, because I wanted to hear whether it was a boy or a girl. And so it was a sweet baby boy, changed my life forever.
Mm,
Um, it was not easy getting up in the middle of the night and fixing bottles and changing diapers and then still getting up a couple hours later to go to school. Uh,
right.
Coming home from school and having to do homework and still take care of a baby. My parents were great. They helped so much, and I don't know what I would have done without them. And I remember at one point, I guess it was my very first Mother's Day, I decided to go to church, to a little church in our community there, and I so longed for a sense of community,
Hmm.
sense of belonging to something, because it's like all the people that were my age were still school kids that were, going on dates and going to the movies and going roller skating.
Right.
And all the other people who were moms were married and mature and doing all these homey, mommy, wifey things. And I was 14. you
Yeah.
know, I didn't even know how to do those things. And I found myself in such a strange position of I didn't fit in either direction, you know?
Mm,
And I ended up winning. They had a thing, the oldest mother, the mother with the most kids, and the youngest mother. Well, for years, I always got the award for the youngest mother. And but I don't know if that really, I think sometimes it was an embarrassing thing to me,
yeah.
more so.
Not the award that you're going after, right?
Right. No, no,
Mhm.
not exactly.
What do you feel like gave you the strength to keep going? Like because you went back to school after
Mhm.
6 weeks, and how did the other kids respond? How did the other parents? Because I know for me, not even talking about pregnancy, but just different things in my life, that kids were very judgmental about things, and their parents could be as well. Did you experience anything like that?
Oh, yes, yes. There were some friends that I had whose parents would not let them hang out with me anymore because I had had a baby.
Yeah.
I had one of my very best friends had lied to her mother until we were grown and told her that that was my baby brother because she knew that her mom would not let her hang out with me if she knew that I'd had a child. And
Mhm.
one of the hardest things was because we had moved from where I knew everybody and all my friends were to a brand new place, brand new school, did not know any of these kids in the school. They didn't know me.
Right.
And so in my mind, and at this school, it seemed like there were two kinds of kids: the kids that were in trouble all the time, that slept around, that partied, those kind of things, or the kids that stayed at home with mom and dad and did nothing. At that time we would have called, the goody goodies or whatever.
Mhm.
And once again, I didn't fit into any of those because I didn't sleep around. I had been with one person and I got pregnant. They didn't know me. They didn't
Mhm.
know me from Adam. They didn't know that I wasn't one of those girls that slept around and just happened to get caught this time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I wasn't. And I just wanted to holler out, "That's me, and that's not me. I'm not like that. It
Yeah.
happened, but I'm not like that." And so there was just a lot of shame that went along with it. And I mean, I was even embarrassed while I was pregnant when I went to the grocery store or things, because
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but when you're 14 years old, people know you're a kid. I
Right.
didn't look like I was 20 or anything. I
Mhm.
look like I was 14. You seen the picture I sent you, the picture
Yes,
of me
I
and my,
did.
and
Mhm.
so I was embarrassed when I went to the grocery store because I knew they knew I had had sex,
Yeah.
and I'm 14, and I was embarrassed, you
Yeah.
know? I felt shame, especially because the baby's dad had just abandoned us, so I was there alone, I didn't have anybody with me. I was that single teenage mom, you
Yeah.
know? And there was nothing about it that was easy, but I do have to say that it drew me closer to God,
That's awesome.
because every night when I laid in my bed and sometimes I would cry or sometimes wonder what the future was going to be, I would pray and I would cry out to God and I would ask him to help me, and what do I do and how do I do this, and that kind of thing, and he would put people in my life that were such an encouragement and that didn't judge me or look down on me or make the ugly comments. I had a comment one time from a young boy that called me, a whore
Hmm.
because I'd had a baby. And so, but the Lord was there with me the whole entire time and still is to this day at 63 years old now.
Right.
And but I know that's the only reason. And I can't say there weren't times that I had actually thought about just taking my life, you know?
Oh,
But
wow.
I knew it was like God put something in me that said, as soon as you do that, something good's going to happen in your life.
Hmm.
And I was going to miss it. And that was the thing that kept me from doing anything like that,
Yeah.
because I knew that there was something good in life coming,
Hmm.
even if I couldn't see it, at that particular time. And he has proven himself faithful in that.
Yes.
Sure.
Doesn't he always?
Yes, he does.
I was just reading in the book of Joshua yesterday, and at the very end of the chapter, I was thinking, what did I just read? Do you ever do that? You read and then you're just like,
Uh-huh.
what did I just
Yeah.
read? And the very end of the chapter, it was just God's promise that I fulfill my promises. Whatever I say, I'm going to do. And so it just reminds me of what you're saying there and that he is faithful. We just have to
Yes.
trust him because we
Yeah.
can't see it, but
And
he
the
can.
thing is, he says that he knew us. He told Jeremiah, I knew you when I formed you in your mother's womb.
Hmm.
And he had called him at that time, while he was still in his mother's womb, to be a prophet to the nations. So every child, as they're formed in their mother's womb, God already has his hands all over that.
100%.
And he knows the beginning and he knows the end and he knows all the in between.
Yeah.
And he so desires for those times to be good
Yeah.
and for him to be involved. We just don't always let him be
Hmm.
sometimes.
Exactly.
But I guarantee you, if we will let him be, he is all in.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my goodness, I love that. Yes. So tell us a little bit. You had shared with me that you did end up getting married at 15. So take us back and tell us a little bit about that. Like what ended up happening there and just give us
Okay.
some backstory there.
Well, what happened when my son was a year old, his father wrote to me from Kentucky and said he had become a Christian and that he wanted to make things right with me and our son and
Mm-hmm.
wanted us to come back to Kentucky. Um, so we ended up coming back to Kentucky. Um, I ended up staying with some folks from his church, and I ended up meeting the Lord too. I ended up giving my life to the Lord after meeting some wonderful people who loved me and they loved God. And of course, I had known about Jesus. I had even made a commitment of faith as a child, not even really knowing for sure what that really looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But after meeting these people and hearing these people talk about God like he was somebody they knew personally, I thought, I want to know God like that. I've always felt like I knew God, and I
Mhm.
prayed, things like that, but I didn't know God like these people knew God. When
Yeah.
these women would talk about going to the grocery store and how they'd pray ahead of time and they'd say, "Lord, I don't have a lot of money. Could you please help me find some good deals?" And how the grocery store would have these crazy sales that very day or something that they didn't even know was going to be.
Mhm.
And they just talked about every aspect of their lives, and God was so personal and so real. And so I remember going home that night and I said, "God, I want to know you like that." And so I prayed and I said, "God, just take my life. I want to have that kind of relationship with you." And then we married. I was 15 at that time.
Mhm.
The church was great to us, was good to me. Um, Once again, it was hard because I found myself in that place where the older women in the church, now I'm married,
Yeah.
I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I needed to act like a wife and a mom.
But you're only 15.
15 years old. I'm the same age as the kids in the youth group.
Yeah.
And that's where I really, part of me wanted to be in the youth group with the rest of the kids my age instead of out in there with the older people, which at that time, they were 30 years old and I thought they were older than dirt.
Yeah.
Um, at that time. So I didn't even have my driver's license, but and my husband worked swing shift, and I would sneak and I would drive to church because it was
Mhm.
down the road from where I lived. And um, even though I didn't have my driver's license yet, but God was faithful and God was good, and we grew so much in the Lord. And but then we moved, and sometimes when you move and you're moving to a new area and you're trying to
Mhm.
new church and you don't go one Sunday and then the next Sunday you don't go, and before you know it, you know?
Right.
And so for some reason inside I always knew that if he ever backslid, if his life with the Lord ever kind of took a back seat, that the first thing he would do was leave me.
Okay.
Just always, and I don't know why, because he was good to me. We got along great. We didn't fight or anything. Everybody thought we had the perfect marriage, up until the day that he came to me and said, I was 21 years old, and he said, "I have never been in love with you. I've had
Mm.
love for you, and I wanted to do what was right, and I did not want to hurt you. But I'm not in love, and I never have been, and I just can't do this anymore." And he hadn't had an affair on me or anything like that. And he even said, before I end up meeting somebody and falling in love with somebody, I don't ever want to do that to you or to God.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Okay.
Well, I'm 21 years old. I have a son that's 7. My mom has already passed away. All the rest of my family lives in Michigan. I'm in Kentucky by myself, a 21-year-old with a child. And I'm thinking, God, I'm too old to start all over again. Because I felt like, I had been married all my life. I had a child that was 7. Who is ever going to want me? I've, I'm, s- how can I start over again?
Mhm.
And once again, it was God. It was God. Because I remember at one time laying in the floor crying so hard because I was just hurting so bad because I loved him. I was, I was in love.
Yeah.
And I remember it literally felt like somebody crawled in behind me on the floor and sat on the floor with me, wrapped their arms around me and held me. And I remember laying over on the floor and crying myself to sleep. But when I woke up, there was such a peace, the peace that passes any kind of understanding at all.
Yeah. I love that.
No,
Yes.
my circumstances weren't any different. I
Mhm.
was still alone. But the relationship that time forged between me and the Lord, I would never take for anything in this world.
Mhm.
Divorce is a horrible, terrible thing, and I think that it's worse than death myself, because you still have to see that person. You still have, there's just things I would never ever want to have to go through it again in my life.
Mhm.
The relationship that it built between God and I, because it was him and me
Yeah.
and my son Mitchell. And that was
Mm.
it, you know? Um, God brought some wonderful Christian friends into my life. At that time, all my Christian friends that I'd gone to church with were couples, friends that we had been with together. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't go hang out with them and watch them be a happy family and I'm alone. That
Yeah.
killed me more than just being alone.
Mm.
So, but the Lord, time after time, would bring people into my life to encourage me, to strengthen me. Um, at that time, I had started singing in a gospel group. My very first, would you say, we weren't full time, but we did probably as much, if not more, sometimes than the full time people did.
Mhm.
And um, so I had always loved to sing with the radio when I was a kid and things like that, but I was always shy. People that know me say, "Yeah, right." But it really, and so the first time I sang, I remember I couldn't even feel the microphone in my hand because it was so numb because I was so nervous and so scared, and I just wanted to throw up, but I didn't. And but doors just kept opening and opening more and more for me to be involved in music. There was a wonderful lady that played the piano at our church that taught me how to sing harmony by plucking out the alto part on the piano note by note,
Mm, beautiful.
and I would memorize it. Well, then it got to, after a period of time, I didn't have to do any of that anymore because my ear could pick it up. And
Oh.
I remember I'd be in a store or something, and there'd be a song playing and I would all of a sudden notice I was singing harmony to it. Sometimes it wasn't a really great song and I'd think, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" But I couldn't help myself because it was like the Lord had developed an ear there where I just couldn't help myself.
Mhm.
Um
It's understandable the things that he does and how he changes things, and I love how you said that during that time, because I was gonna ask, like, what regret do you have about getting married because you ended up in divorce? But I hear what you're saying 100%, that the relationship that you and the Lord came together with during that very, very
yeah.
difficult time when you just completely were relying on him, gave you the strength.
Yes, yes. And I know that it wasn't God's ultimate will, of
Mhm.
course, but humans sometimes make choices,
Yeah.
and sometimes innocent people get hurt by other people's decisions.
Mhm. Right.
But I'm so thankful for God's mercy, for his grace, for his forgiveness. There would be some people that would think, how can I be on the platform singing gospel music and sharing Jesus with people when I'm a divorced woman? You know?
Right.
Um, and I even struggled with that because I had a lady tell me, she said, "Well, I'm so sorry for you that you're going to have to spend the rest of your life alone now because
Mm.
your husband left you, because it would be against God's will for you to ever remarry. So now you'll have to spend the rest of your life alone."
Well, people have their perspective, that's for certain, don't they? And they're not shy to tell you.
And I remember I cried and I cried and I said, "God, if this is what I have to do to have a right relationship with you, I'll do it. But God, you're going to have to do something supernatural in me because I was 21 years old, you know?
Mhm.
I don't want to be alone the rest of my life, especially when all my family's gone.
Right.
And but God, if that's what you are requesting of me, and I'm so thankful that that is not what he requested of me.
Mhm.
His mercy and his grace led me to an amazing man that was raising four little boys on his own and put us together. And then we had five boys. And then we
All of a
ended up,
sudden.
Then we adopted 2 more, and there were
Hmm.
7, 6 boys,
Wow.
we've been married now, it'll be 34 years this year, and 7 children, 18 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren later.
Yes.
Here we are serving Jesus and teaching our kids
Hmm.
the mercy and the grace and the forgiveness and the love of God.
Yeah.
And also, I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of teaching with um, the teen girls and letting them know they are so worth waiting for what God has for them.
Right.
Uh,
Yes.
if somebody loves you, they'll wait.
Yeah.
They will wait, and God has so much better for you than what so many times what we settle for because we're
Hmm.
so afraid that nothing else is going to come along. And our desire to love and be loved is so intense
Yeah.
that so many times we walk away from what we know is right and make
Hmm.
bad choices because we feel desperate.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't ever want them to feel desperate. I want them to know they are loved. God is crazy about us.
Yeah.
He is. And
Hmm.
just because we're Christians doesn't mean everything is always hunky dory and perfect and peachy, and doesn't mean we won't ever hurt or go through hard times.
Very true.
But He does promise that we will never, ever go through those times by ourselves.
Hmm.
And so, as young girls, young women, even, if we can hold to that high standard that God has for us,
Hmm.
He think about how much God has invested in us. I have a pastor friend. He said, think about it. Since I want you to go back and look since birth, how much God has invested in you.
Yes.
And
I
even
love that.
point of investing his own son
Hmm.
for us. Sinners,
Right.
not after
Hmm.
we became good, not after we became perfect, not after we got everything right, but while we were yet sinners, he died for us.
Just as we are, for certain.
Just as we
Yeah.
and I've also shared with some girls that, if you have if you're not a virgin anymore, if you have given yourself away,
Hmm.
that is not the end. That is not the end. And I have seen lives where God has just made it like it had never happened.
Hmm.
When the day came that they did get married, it was like the first time all over again because God
Right.
is just that good,
Yes. He
and
is that good.
He
Absolutely.
didn't qualify us
Hmm.
because of stupid choices that we've made. Now, not that He's sitting over there and cheering us on because we've been dumb,
Yeah.
but in spite of
Hmm.
our sin, in spite of our human nature at times, He still loves us,
Absolutely.
crazy about us.
Hmm.
Plans for us are still good
Yeah. Well,
because
I'm sure with your 18 grandkids and 13 great grandbabies that you've
3.
got, or yes, 18 grandkids, three greats, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So, how many girls are in that bunch? I'm sure that you are teaching them fully about love and motherhood and grit and all the things as they are, they're young. And some of them, since you have great grandbabies, then I'm assuming obviously, some of them are adults.
Yes, yes, and my 3 great-grandbabies are all 3 girls.
Okay.
In the beginning, the first 10 grandkids that we had, uh, 5 were boys and 5 were girls,
Okay.
and so it's pretty equal between the boys and the girls,
Uh huh.
um, but we also fostered for 15 years,
Okay.
and one thing that I used to do with these little girls when I would tuck them into bed at night and we would pray. And
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 little girls that shared the same room, and they were probably about 7 years old, 7, 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would pray together every night. I'd tuck them in and I'd say, God, I pray that you will just bless these young ladies. And I pray that God, one day you'll send them amazing, wonderful husbands
Mm.
that love you, and love her, love them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they'll get married and they'll have lots of wonderful babies. And I would pray that over them every single night. And one night one of the girls asked me, she said, "Why do you always pray first that we'll get married and then we'll have babies?" Because in their lives they had never seen a family where mom and dad were married.
Okay.
And so for me to say that God would send them wonderful husbands and then give them lots of beautiful kids,
Yeah.
they didn't know that concept.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even realize it was really something that you thought about.
Yeah.
And so I got to explain to them God's plan for them as women, as they grow up, and how God planned for it to be, a husband and a wife, and they'd serve God and they'd have
Yeah.
kids. And so I had the opportunity to share that with a lot of foster children who had never been in church in their lives. Some of
That's
them
beautiful.
didn't even know who God was. And the whole idea of family was just not even in the,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I can
in
imagine.
thought.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. Well, through everything that you've been through from being a 14-year-old teenage mom and then getting married, getting divorced, now you're in a blended family. You've had heartache with, losing, your first husband divorcing you and healing through that process. What is one truth that you now hold so close to your heart that you just didn't know back then?
No matter what God does or allows to be done in your life, it's always for His glory and for your best interest. Always.
Yeah.
That is the thing that got me through when sometimes I think, God, why have you allowed this to happen? You could have
Hmm.
stopped it. Or why does it? But He always reassured me that in everything in my life that has
Yeah.
ever happened from birth on,
Hmm.
His thoughts were for me and what was the best for me. And
Exactly.
even though there were times it sure didn't seem like it,
Yeah. Yes.
but it's the truth. And
Hmm.
if we can think of life that way, then we can trust Him, because no matter what's going on, He's got our back. He's got
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So we can trust Him in all things,
Always,
from
absolutely.
beginning to end.
And so if there was a young woman watching this today, or maybe she's not even young, maybe she's old, obviously she's a little bit older, maybe she's younger than you or me or a little bit older, I don't know, but she feels like her past really disqualifies her because I know I was in that space for a long, long time. If she's feeling like, like you said, "Yeah, I'm divorced, like how can I this or how can I that?" But if someone were listening today and they were just feeling like, my past just disqualifies me, it doesn't matter what anyone else say, I am still feeling really disqualified from having any kind of a bright future. What would the one piece of advice that you could give to encourage her be?
Well, one thing is, I think about Peter in the Bible. He denied Christ 3 times, yet he became the leader, for lack of figuring out how else to say. God used him in such a powerful way to begin the church in the very beginning, you
Mhm.
know? Um, and not only that, God has seen something in you that was worth saving, something in you that was worth keeping you alive this long.
Mm.
And I want you to know there is nothing that you can do that will ever cause him to love you less than he loves you at this very moment. His love for you is the ultimate, no matter what. And there's nothing you can say or do to cause him to love you less than he loves you right now.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And Peter, he did deny Christ. So it would seem as if he would be really disqualified, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yet God.
Yet God, because
Mhm.
God knew what was in Peter. He knew Peter's heart. Sometimes we say dumb things, sometimes we do dumb things, but God knows our hearts. He sees
Yes.
our hearts,
Mhm.
and He knows what's really going on in there.
Yes.
For anybody, whether you're young, whether you're old, he knows what's going on. He
Mhm.
knows what's really in your heart, even though your actions or your words may say differently. He sees it all.
Yep.
And that's
Absolutely.
what he works on accordingly, you know?
Yes. Thank goodness, right?
Yes, thank you, Jesus.
This
As
is
they say in
awesome.
Kentucky, thank you,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us, what are you doing these days? So you've got a huge family, 7 kids, 13, 18 grandkids, 3 great-grandbabies. What is Kathy doing these days besides keeping up with the big family?
I'm still doing music. I haven't been traveling on the road as of late, but I do private voice lessons and things. I worked at the Steve Hurst School of Music in Nashville for a number of years being a vocal instructor there. And,
Okay.
um, and you talking about not having a college degree. I was one of the only teachers there that did not have a music degree. But Steve seen something in me,
Mhm.
Mr. Hurst did. And they had taught me so well because I had been a student there first.
Yeah.
And then I began to do private lessons at home, and I still do that now. I love to work with kids,
Yeah.
which a lot of voice teachers don't do because, the fact is they don't listen real good sometimes or their
Yeah.
behavior things. But why wait till somebody's learned how to sing wrong for years and then have to fix it and start all over again when you could start them learning how to do it right to begin with, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Awesome.
and I love that. I love encouraging people and even in the things that maybe I can't do because a number of my students have gone on to be full-time professional Christian music artists.
Awesome.
And that I've seen on TBN or that have been on the singing news or on the Gaither videos or things like that. And I think that
Mhm.
was one of my students. And even
Oh,
if I
beautiful.
can't do it, is it so exciting to me to see that I got to be a part of them developing the gifts that God gave them
Mhm.
and they're getting to do it.
Yes. That's
So,
awesome.
yes. And, all my days, I would have never dreamed that I would have ever been in front of people doing anything like that. I took zeros at school before I'd stand up and give a school report, even though I'd
Oh,
done,
wow.
because I just couldn't get up in front of people.
Mhm.
So now I'm doing it, or leading a choir. I didn't even sing in choirs. I didn't care nothing about choirs.
Well,
But
God changed all that, didn't he?
oh my gosh, did he not? And
Mhm.
and I've actually had the position at I think 3 different churches now. Are you still there? Yeah, my
Yeah.
phone's dying. Let me get my cord.
Okay.
3 different churches now where I've been the minister of music there.
Oh, wow.
Well, who in the world would have ever thought that I would be doing something like that? Because
Yeah.
I myself would have never dreamed if somebody would have told me one day you'll be directing choirs and one day you'll be the minister of music at a church and I would have said you're slap nuts. That ain't never gonna happen.
Well, that's
But
amazing.
God,
Yeah, but God.
God,
That's like a
just like you.
reoccurring theme, right? But God.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, tell us if there's any listeners on today that want to connect with you because they want their children or teenagers or whatever to talk to you about music. How can they find you?
I don't have a website, but I you can contact me through email. It's
Okay.
Woodward Kathy 76@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on Facebook. It's Kathy Eubanks Woodward on Facebook.
Okay.
And just contact me, and then we can connect and see. And if you're in my area, I would love to work with you, whether you're, 5 or 55 or 95,
So, do you do anything virtually?
I haven't, but
Okay.
I've seen a lot of people do it. And one reason I haven't is we live in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Okay.
And so we just, and I am not kidding you, we just in the last 2 months was able to get high speed internet. And until that time, I think we were the last people to have AOL dial up.
Oh, wow.
And moved from that to HughesNet.
Well, praise the Lord for small miracles, right?
Exactly. And so now I'm I'm gonna be able to do more. And that's, in actual
Yeah.
reality, I hadn't even thought about that in a long time doing that. But that might be a
Okay.
possibility.
Yeah. So my son actually, he takes lessons with Sherry. And although we live
Yeah.
locally, we do it virtually because he has several lessons with her. But I'm thrilled that, people can connect with you. And I will be sure and put your contact information in the show notes. But it has just been a pleasure today to chat with you and to hear your story again and even give me a little bit more details than what we had talked about before. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely.
I just really appreciate you. And I'm so thankful that the Lord crossed our paths as well.
Yes. He knows what he's doing, right?
Yes, he does.
He does.
So
Thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for having
much.
me.
Thank you.
Yes. Talk to you again.
Okay. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom, keep showing up bold, and never forget God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.